हेलो एवरीवन, अ वेरी वार्म वेलकम। आई होप आप सब अच्छे होंगे। आज का वीडियो इज आल्सो अबाउट Trump tariffs part 2. Those who have watched my first video on Trump tariffs, it will make a lot of sense to you because it's a continuation of that topic. And those who haven't watched that video, the link is in this description. Now, before I actually go into the today's topic, I'll do a quick wrap of the last video anyways. तो उस लास्ट वीडियो में मैंने दो चार चीज़ें जो मेन की टेक अवेज थे उसमें ये था। नंबर वन वाज व्हाट आर द की ड्राइवर्स, किस लिए ट्रम्प इज ब्रिंगिंग द टैरिफ्स ऑन द होल वर्ल्ड। फर्स्ट थिंग फर्स्ट वाज प्लेइंग टू द गैलरी, अपने वोटर्स को प्लीज करना। सेकेंडली अपनी लोकल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को एलिवेट करना, प्रोटेक्ट भी करना और एलिवेट भी करना। थर्डली जॉब क्रिएशन करना ताकि लोग या बाहर की कंपनीज और यूएस के बिजनेसमैन also they produce more, they create more factories which will result in more jobs. And fourthly अपनी जो लोकल इंडस्ट्री है उनको मोर कंपेरेटिव करना। अगर टैरिफ्स लगाता है, टैक्सेस लगाता है तो जो फॉरेन जो इंपोर्ट्स हैं वो एक्सपेंसिव होंगे और जो लोकल प्रोड्यूसर्स हैं वो भी ज़्यादा कंपेरेटिव होंगे। सो दोज वर सम ऑफ द की ड्राइवर्स। एंड प्लस लास्ट वन जो उनका डेफिसिट है इनकम वर्सेस एक्सपेंडिचर का, इट्स अ फॉर्म ऑफ टैक्स जिससे उसको और रेवेन्यू मिलेगा एंड ही कैन रिड्यूस दैट डेफिसिट ऑफ इनकम वर्सेस स्पेंड। सो दोज वर सम ऑफ द की ड्राइवर्स जिसके बारे में हमने लास्ट वीडियो में बात की थी फॉर इम्पोजिंग दिस टैरिफ्स ऑन द वर्ल्ड। सेकेंड चीज़ मैंने उसमें डिस्क्राइब की थी कि हाउ टैरिफ्स वर्क। थर्ड चीज़ मैंने फोकस किया था कि पूरे वर्ल्ड पे टैरिफ लगाना तो एक बहाना है, असली टारगेट, असली निशाना चाइना है। चाइना इज द रियल टारगेट। लास्ट चीज हमने डिस्कस की थी कि व्हाट मे हैपन नेक्स्ट, इज ट्रम्प सिंपली ब्लफिंग और ही इज गोइंग टू फॉलो थ्रू ऑन दिस एंड हाउ चाइना विल रिएक्ट एंड हाउ थिंग्स विल पैन आउट। तो आज की वीडियो में हम बात करेंगे कि ट्रम्प वाज एक्चुअली नॉट ब्लफिंग but at the same time he was bluffing. So it's a very interesting mix, which we know he's as a typical businessman. That's a trait of a businessman. तो हम उसके बारे में बात करेंगे कि he did blink, but did he actually blink fully or it was a half blink. Second हम बात करेंगे how China has been reacting to this and how they are playing the mind games as well as negotiating behind the scenes as well. And again, after these two factors, what actually made Trump blink, even if he half blinked, what made him blink? And finally, again, what can we expect in the near future between these two? Because right now, the war is no longer between Trump and the rest of the world because that's been put on hold. It's more about US and China. So how things may play out in the next few months or weeks as we watch this whole thing unfold. So let's start. So let's understand firstly what made him blink, even though it was a half blink. Half blink इसलिए कह रहा हूँ मैं क्योंकि उसने चाइना को एक्सक्लूड कर दिया। चाइना को क्यों एक्सक्लूड किया? क्योंकि चाइना हिट बैक। चाइना पे उसने जो टैरिफ लगाया उसका 34% चाइना retaliated by imposing 35%, 34%. That's where it started. अब तो खैर they have just gone completely out of control. Right now, I think US has imposed 145% on China. और चाइना ने 125% on all the goods that come from the US. So they're completely out of control. लेकिन उस टाइम पे when this whole thing started, China was the only country that retaliated by imposing tariffs on US goods when US imposed those tariffs. So coming back to why he blinked, first is not because of the share markets. He's a very clever, shrewd businessman. In fact, he made a statement that now is the time to get rich, which means buy more. Again, what got him to pause the tariffs on the rest of the world except China is the bond market. As I explained in my last video, US सबसे ज़्यादा borrow करता है money in the whole world. They've got 36.2 trillion worth of debt on them when Trump took the office. So it's a huge debt. So वो जो डेट को सर्विस करने के लिए दे पे अ नॉमिनल इंटरेस्ट टू द क्रेडिटर्स। और उसका जो सबसे बिगेस्ट क्रेडिटर है वो है जापान, फॉलोड बाय चाइना। आई थिंक जापान का उन्होंने देना है अबाउट 1.2 ट्रिलियन डॉलर्स और चाइना का देना है अबाउट 760 बिलियन डॉलर्स। तो जब गवर्नमेंट्स बोरो करती हैं दूसरे कंट्री से, दे गिव सम सिक्योरिटी एंड दैट सिक्योरिटी इज कॉल्ड अ बॉन्ड। इट्स अ वेरी वेरी सेफ लोन बिकॉज यूएस इज नॉट गोइंग टू डिफॉल्ट। सो इसलिए उनका जो इंटरेस्ट होता है वो बहुत लो होता है। But when you are in a situation like this, where your relationship is going sour with not with your key creditors, mainly China, so there's a fear that they will start dumping those bonds. They will start selling those bonds, and in fact, the market actually started selling those bonds. Why? Because they no longer saw US being a safe haven anymore. तो जस्ट सिंपल इकोनॉमी, डिमांड एंड सप्लाई, अगर आप के जो क्रेडिटर्स हैं वो आपके बॉन्ड्स को मार्केट में सेल करना शुरू कर देते हैं तो आपकी सप्लाई बढ़ जाती है, और अगर आपकी सप्लाई बढ़ जाती है तो देन यू विल बी पेइंग हायर इंटरेस्ट, क्योंकि अब आपको नए क्रेडिटर्स ढूंढने हैं और आपको नए बोरोवर्स ढूंढने हैं। जब आप नए बोरोवर्स ढूंढोगे तो वो बोलेंगे कि आई डोंट एक्चुअली वांट 2%, आई वांट 5%। नाउ गवर्नमेंट इज बोरिंग मनी, before they were borrowing at 2%, I'm just making up a number, now they have to borrow at 5%, तो जो उसकी सर्विसेबिलिटी है उस लोन की वो बढ़ जाती है, प्लस दे द होल कॉस्ट ऑफ मनी इंक्रीजेस। अब ये तो हो गया कि what made him pause tariffs and what made him blink. The second thing is, what did China do? China did not back down at all. In fact, they took the war to Trump, and he said it's going. They said it's going to be tit for tat. तो जिस तरह से जैसे जैसे वो बढ़ाता गया वैसे वैसे चाइना बढ़ाता गया, and now as I mentioned before, they are sitting at 145%. They are looking at that kind of taxes, or US is looking at 125% of taxes. So it's, in my view, a collateral damage. I don't think there will be any winners in that. तो अब चाइना ने कुछ जो measures या कुछ signals भेजे कि don't take us lightly. Number one, उन्होंने बॉन्ड मार्केट में थोड़ी सी सेलिंग की, अभी इतनी नहीं, बट दे हैव दैट एज ए ट्रम्प कार्ड। अगर उन्होंने उनको अगर वो अपने दे स्टार्ट हेविली सेलिंग देयर बॉन्ड्स, दैट विल बी अ कैटास्ट्रोफिक आउटकम फॉर द यूएस। सेकंड चीज उन्होंने की कि एक रेयर अर्थ्स बोलते हैं जिनको, दे आर मिनरल्स, जिससे आप हर तरह की चीजें बनाते हैं। इनफैक्ट देयर इज हार्डली एनीथिंग इन द यूएस, फ्रॉम इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स टू डिफेंस मटेरियल to things that you even parts that you manufacture in your planes, your semiconductors, you name it, आपके toys, हर चीज में वो elements और magnets डलते हैं जो चाइना प्रोड्यूस करता है। Now it's a little bit deceptive, उसको हम rare earths बोलते हैं, but they're not actually rare. They're just very hard, and they're very actually the whole process of producing things is very very bad for the environment. तो जो उसका waste होता है, that no one wants it. तो China 90% of those rare earths produce करता है for the whole world, और not only they produce, they have a very mature supply chain in place, जो कि दुनिया में किसी के पास भी नहीं है। दूसरी चीज जो उन्होंने किया, दे वार्मिंग अप टू देयर नेबर्स, वियतनाम, थाईलैंड, मलेशिया एंड इवन इंडिया। इंडिया को भी उन्होंने बहुत वार्म सिग्नल भेजे हैं कि the dragon and elephant can dance together. So they are trying to reduce their reliance on US and making sure that they can actually sustain their manufacturing and their economies by supplying it to the rest of the world. In fact, in which Europe is also a big part of it as well. So they're warming up and they are rallying all their allies to make sure that it's now a game of US versus the whole world, और US versus China, and what they are both actually looking for allies. तो शायद इसलिए भी ट्रम्प ने पॉज कर दिया rest of the world to make sure that he is not isolated, और China is also doing the same. They are actually warming up to all the nations and saying let's work together and let's not be bullied by the US. So that's why in the last segment I just want to talk about where from here. Again, as I said in my last video as well, no one knows how things pan out. These politicians, they change colors like Melbourne weather where I live. In 5 minutes, things can change. And you and I, I'm making this video, and the next day, tomorrow, there will be, even before it is published, there could be a news that they are having, a phone call, and everything is hunky dory. So it's only these people in these power corridors know what they're up to and what they're doing, and people like us can only speculate. लेकिन उसके साथ साथ दो तीन कुछ facts हैं that also can't be ignored as well. So let's talk about those things, and in light of those facts, let's try and understand what may happen over the next few weeks and months. First thing first, there is no doubt in my mind that Trump is trying to level up with China. उसको strongly लगता है कि there's an imbalance and he wants to fix it. और China is also has known about this for a long time. तो उनको ये नहीं है कि एकदम से उनको they are finding themselves in that difficult position. But they have been, and as a result of that, they've been preparing for a scenario like this for many years. मुझे नहीं लगता कि Trump is prepared in terms of announcing these tariffs and then now scratching his head what to do. I don't think he is that prepared. He's done his homework. Like in China, I feel or believe is more prepared than Trump. So they have got backup plans, contingency plans as well in terms of how to survive without the US or what cards to play if US does what they और दूसरी चीज ये है कि one when you announce yourself like this, like the way tariff Trump did this tariff thing on like a macho man, then it's very hard to backtrack. Lekin in the Western countries, they do have egos, but at the same time they don't have any problem swallowing that pride as well. It's just one phone call for Trump and things can change. Lekin for a country like China, in Asian countries, or in our country like India and China, it's different. It's a cultural thing. Your pride is part of your culture. तो वो इतनी जल्दी इतना बैक डाउन नहीं करेंगे. Both are playing to their galleries. Trump now has to convince his voters that he can stand up to China, and China has to do the same as well. और उनके बहुत सारे leaders आके बात कर रहे हैं कि we will take a hit on the economy, but not a hit on our pride, our respect. US has treated us quite badly and embarrassed us, humiliated us for decades and decades. And by the way, India has the same sentiments as well. India के भी कुछ ministers ने कहा कि we do not negotiate on gunpoint. So messages have started to trickle through. So दोनों countries, in fact, if I talk about China, they are not going to be negotiating on gunpoint. They are not going to be blackmailed. और दोनों countries, लेकिन at the same time, US के लिए और Trump के लिए भी अब ये एक प्राइड का इशू बन गया है और चाइना के लिए तो प्राइड का इशू है ही है. So it's going to take a little bit of creativity for both leaders and both countries to come out of this mess. But the bottom line is, it is a mess. It's no one, I don't believe for a minute that anyone can win out of a trade war like this. So let's hope common sense prevails and both countries come together for the betterment of the world, because as they say, when these powers like these sneeze, the rest of the world catches the cold. So we don't want that. No one can afford it. No one can afford recession or inflation anymore. With the advent of AI, already a lot of jobs are at stake and all that, and the whole world is rethinking how things are going to go forward with the introduction of AI. So the last thing you want is the slowing down of the economies and the big economies. So on that note, I hope common sense, as I said, prevails and they find a way forward, which I'm sure they will. And they don't. This thing doesn't. The only thing is that it doesn't linger on. The more it lingers on, the more effect it has in medium to long term. So on that note, thank you for watching. I hope you found this informative as well. There will be a lot more that will happen over the weeks, and I will continue to share my thoughts on that. So there will be part 3, part 4, on who knows how many more parts before we come back to normalcy. So thank you for watching, and if you like the video, please do share it with others as well. Until next time, be happy, be good, and take care.